I'm Emily. I'm on the go-to-market team here at 11 Labs. I primarily focus on media and entertainment in the United States. So very excited to be talking to you all today about our newest model, which is our sound effects model. The model went into alpha maybe a month or so ago now. And since it's generally available for everybody, and then as of a few days ago, we actually launched the API. So the API for our sound effects model is available as well. And if you're new here, just like background on 11 Labs, I won't dive into it too much, but we are an audio AI research company. We started with the most realistic, versatile, and contextually aware AI voices. And since then, we've kept that same spirit and we've gone more into the audio space. And sound effects is the first iteration of that, right? But at heart, it's still that same mission to create the highest quality audio content out there using generative AI models. So I'm going to jump in. Before I do, I wanted to show you a demo that I thought was really cool, which kind of demonstrates what the technology is capable of. So we have a user in our Discord channel who shared a Hollywood movie with them using 11 Labs sound effects and generating that. And I think this demonstrates the technology incredibly well. So I wanted to kick off the webinar with that video to give you guys an idea of what the model is capable of. So let me share my other screen. Give me 1 second, please. All right. There we go. Okay, hopefully this works. Actually, I don't think the audio is going to come through if I share this. I have to share it in a tab. So let me share it in a tab. Give me 1 second to pull that up. Okay, well, maybe we will come back to that. And I'll just jump into the platform because I can't find where that went. So I will find that in a second. Okay, back to the sound effects. So this is the sound effects model. It's pretty straightforward. The way it works is it's essentially text to sound effects. So you can generate multiple sounds from a text prompt, and there's an infinite range. So you can generate things such as like background noise, instrumental, character voices. You can also generate unique sounds, and we give it to you in less than like 5 seconds. You can also control the duration. So simple sounds like alarm clocks, doorbells, car engines, cat meowing, all of that. You can also generate like soundscapes and ambient noises. So a busy city street or ocean storms. There's a wide variety of character voices too. So you can generate one I did earlier was an ogre that yells, "Stay away, puny human," or like an anime female voice. And then there's instrumental music that you can generate too. So like a 90s hip hop beat. And then there's also like multiple chain sounds together, which you can also generate. So let's try a few. When I had first started this, I started with like the most basic thing I could think of, which was water. So what you do is you type in the text that you want, and then the output will be water. We'll give that just a second to generate. Okay, so once you generate with the prompt, it gives you 4 samples to choose from. So there's water. A handful of water sounds already, but there's more settings you can do, right? So if you wanted to choose, by default, we automatically pick the length that we think is best. You also have the option to choose the duration for however long you want it to be. And then there's a prompt as well. The prompt allows you to choose like more creative if you want it to be a more unique sound. If you want it to be very strict to the prompt exactly, then you can increase the strictness. And I'm just going to reset it and leave it at the standard duration. And so there's another video I want to show you guys, which is in my browser, so it will work. The audio will work here. But the one I wanted to show you is like we can do a prompt like this, right? Locomotive train on railway track. Let's generate this. Okay, so we get a few train sounds. I think that one's pretty good. And I should have... That one's music, not exactly what we're looking for. That one's quite good. So I'm going to stop sharing and show you like the output of this video of this sound effect. Let me share my other screen. Okay, so this was put together using Luma Labs with one of our head of design here at 11 Labs. So it was that exact same text prompt. And then, for example, in like a video generator, like Luma Labs AI, you can then input that sound into the video generation. So Amar, that you see here from Twitter X, he generated this exact prompt and then used Luma Labs to integrate it. And here's the final output of the short video. Pretty good. And you can even use like some post-processing tools for that as well, which came across obviously quite nicely. So let me show you one more that he generated. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Okay. All right. Okay. Stop sharing and okay, so back to this. There's a few other ones and you can layer the sounds on top of each other, right? So the first one that he used for the video I'm about to show you, and just some examples of prompts: giant energy source, sci-fi, dramatic sound. We can go ahead and generate that. Give it 1 more second to load. And like I said, if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. Quite sci-fi. Very good. And then let's do another one, like a spaceship. So now we've got like our ambient sound. We can also do something as like a spaceship. I'll give that 1 more second to generate. Very good. And then the last one, just as an example of like a prompt you can feed the model: a man walking in an echoey room. So you can do more than just like a simple water, door knocking, but you can actually kind of set the scene a little bit. And let's hear the man. Very subtle. So these ones are quite subtle. So I'll show you a video of the output. So Amar used these 3 prompts to generate this next video, which was also done using Luma. Let's see. Back to Amar. So this was the next one. It's a short scene. Short scene. He layered those three sounds together, obviously in a post processing editing tool. Created this, all using 11 Labs sound effects. Very good. And every time you generate, you'll also get new sounds as well. So if you don't like the batch it gave you, you can go ahead and regenerate, and you will get a different sound from there. From here, you have your history too. So this is the generation tab. You have your history tab. Anything you've generated will be saved here. And then you'll also have like the drop down arrow where you can then download any of the sounds. It downloads by default into MP3 format. And you can also go back and listen to your fun sounds. Okay, I found the Discord post that I wanted to show you guys. Let me share my screen since I now have it pulled up. So that's like everything for sound effects, pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's a library of all your sounds. You also have the ability, oh, and I realized I didn't show that piece. I was saved on the other screen. So let me go back to the platform. Okay. The piece I just spoke to, which I was showing the wrong tab for the last 5 minutes. So this is where you generate audio. This is where your history is saved. So any prompt you've created lives in your history. You can go through by date. You can also choose the drop down, and these are all the generations. So you can listen to the 4 samples that you've gotten, and then you can download them from there as well. Okay, now that we're on the right tab, sorry about that. I wanted to show you guys as we move away from sound effects and we go into the dubbing tool and the dubbing studio. I wanted to just show you like the last demonstration, which I think represents sound effects very well. And it was that video I tried to pull up in the beginning with a user from our community who created a Hollywood video using 11 Lab sound effects, or re-edited a Hollywood video using 11 Lab sound effects. And I think it shows like the power of the model quite well. So let me share the right tab with you all. Okay. So this is Star Wars, and then you'll see the generation of the sound effects are used from 11 Labs, where he goes in and reiterates on it. Stop there. I love that demo. I think it shows the tool so well, and obviously a great editor who put it together. So that's really it on sound effects. I think like the main takeaway here is you now have the ability to generate sound effects in like a matter of seconds, minutes at most, that you can then incorporate into like any tools you're using. Like I said, we now have the API available, which is generally available to everyone. So you can go in, use that, and generate sound effects in your own environment as well. Okay, and let's move on to dubbing, since I know we're going to cover off on sound effects as well as the dubbing studio. So moving over to sound effects, if you haven't seen the 11 Labs platform before, here it is. Dubbing is on the left-hand side. Our dubbing tool, so I guess some background on this. We launched dubbing in the later half of 2023, so last year. Towards the end of the year, we launched dubbing. It was very black boxed in the sense like you would upload a video, say in English, and then you would get a Spanish version back with little controls or parameters around it. And so that's like the background there. And then later on this year, it was the end of January that we launched the dubbing studio. And because it was black boxed and that we had partners and people using the dubbing tool saying like, hey, I want to have more control. I don't want a direct translation. I want to make edits and those types of things. We launched the dubbing studio, and the dubbing studio gives you more control over your dubs. So the way it works, it's pretty straightforward. You'll give your project a name. So like Emilie's webinar. You'll choose the language that the original audio is in, English, or the original audio or video clip. And then the language you want to dub into. We support 29 languages today, so you can choose any of those, Spanish. And then you'll choose, you have a few upload options. So you can just drag and drop the MP3 file or the audio file. You can link to YouTube. So if you have a YouTube URL, you can link it here. You can also link to TikTok. And then we have a manual option to upload. So if your company or provides like your own translations and transcriptions, this is a great tool to ensure accuracy through the translation. So this is where right now we support CSV file upload. So you'll upload a CSV file of the dialogue as well as the transcription, or sorry, the dialogue, the transcription, as well as the translation. And then the model will pull from that and it'll be as an exact one-to-one of what you've uploaded. And then you can upload like the audio and video files separately as well. For simplicity's sake, say we just upload a video here. You'll go through, and one thing I always recommend that I think is very important, there's two things actually. The first is check this box that says Dubbing Studio Project, because this will give you the ability to go into your video and make edits. And then the second is number of speakers. So by default, the model is going to extract however many number of speakers it thinks are in that video. But there are issues where, like, if somebody has a lot of emotion in their voice or they talk higher or softer, the model might confuse that to be two different speakers. So I always recommend selecting the number of speakers in that video. And then you can even extract a certain range. So if we only wanted like 1 minute of the video, we could leave this from 0 to 1 minute. And then you'll go ahead and click create. Once you click create, the video will generate, and the time it takes to generate is, we say like a 1-to-1 ratio. So if it's like a 10-minute video in English, it'll take about 10 minutes to generate the dubbed version. I've found it to be about half the time. So like a 10-minute video can be dubbed in 5 minutes. For the sake of this webinar, I didn't want to wait 5-10 minutes to dub a video. So I've gone ahead in advance and dubbed a video. And let me show you what it looks like. So this is, I guess, backtrack one thing. When the dub is completed, it will come down here. You'll see the option to remove it. You'll see the details. You'll click edit. This is where you'll edit the dubbed version. If you didn't check this Dubbing Studio project, you won't have the edit option. But since we did, we have that option. Okay, into the Dubbing Studio. So this is our 11 Labs Dubbing Studio. I uploaded this strictly from a URL from YouTube with PBS, which is public broadcasting. Not the most exciting video, but I think it demonstrates the technology very well. So we'll hear the beginning. This woman's name is Amna, which we have it broken out. There's 2 speakers in this track. So I guess to start, we can go ahead and give her a name, which I believe her name is Amna, like this. And we can just call this person reporter 2. So you'll get all the speakers. This video has 2 speakers. And then by default, the background noise is extracted as well. So since I imported this directly from YouTube, what the model's done is it's gone ahead and extracted the dialogue for me. So it's transcribed the entire video. What I always recommend before you go into like the dubbed version or start making edits and tweaks there, I always recommend prior reading the dialogue here and making sure this is exactly what you want. This is exactly how it was transcribed. The model will get you like 90% of the way there, maybe even 100%, depending on the content you have. But go ahead and make sure it's exactly what you were looking for. And then from there, when we toggle over to our other languages, so here's Spanish, right? We have original. Here's Spanish. It's an exact translation from what you have over here. So maybe this wasn't the NCAA, but it was like, instead it said the NBA. We'll type NBA. And then that edit will happen in the Spanish version as well. So give it just a second to populate. Whatever changes we make in the English will then be translated and changed into the language we've dubbed into as well. So now we have the NBA instead of the NCAA. That is not what this video says. So I'm going to revert back to the original. And then you can go through here and you have it broken out by the translations. The other thing the model does is when you create the dub, by default, it automatically clones the original speaker's voice. So in this case, we have Amna. And now when we toggle over to Spanish or French, it's Amna speaking Spanish, speaking French in her own original voice. And it's also, you'll see the model copies like the same intonation, inflections, emotion that she has in the new languages in her voice. So let me go ahead and press play. I'll play a clip for you in English, and then we'll go to the French and Spanish versions.
The NCAA announced a new 8-year broadcast deal with ESPN last week for over $900 million, with women's college sports making up the bulk of the deal. While women's athletics have traditionally been on the sidelines of sports media, in recent years they have scored some big wins with mainstream audiences, effectively tripling their coverage in the process.
Okay, so there is the original. Let's go into Spanish.
La NCAA anunció un nuevo acuerdo de transmisión de 8 años con ESPN la semana pasada por más de $900 millones. Rich Green
Okay, let's go to French now. We'll give you a French version of the same clip.
La NCAA a annoncé un nouvel accord de diffusion de 8 ans avec ESPN la semaine dernière pour plus de $900 millions.
Oh, and so there's a few options and few controls you have here, right? So by default, like one thing I will reiterate is like there is still a bit of a human element to this. Like somebody needs to go through and make sure the transcription's what you want, the translation, it's done in minutes. But by default, there's more words typically. English typically has less words per sentence than other languages. So what happens is if this is a 5-minute video, for example, in English, we're going to dub you a 5-minute version in Spanish, which means the pace of the Spanish will be a lot quicker because we're matching that for like the lip syncing and the finalized version. So this is where you have some controls. You can either like remove like dialogue you don't think is important. You can also shorten tracks like a little bit. If I shorten the track here, this will speed it up, the dialogue, and this will lengthen it out. So it will slow it down or speed it up. Anytime you make changes for those changes to be reflected, you can you need to click generate stale audio. You can do that per clip if you'd like and recompute, and then any changes you've made will be reflected in the actual audio. We also have this very handy button here, which gives you the ability to generate like all clips, so you don't have to manually go through and generate those. Okay. There's a few other things that are quite handy in the dubbing studio. So we have Amna, obviously, as our original speaker.
The NCAA announced a new 8-year.
For whatever reason, like maybe we are working on an animated content, or we don't have the ability to use her voice and we want to add a different voiceover. What you can do, like I mentioned, by default, we clone her voice, but you have the ability to actually change her voice as well. So we can go into the Spanish. Let's see. Oh, right here, settings. So breaking down the tracks, I guess to backtrack a little bit, in the English version, we just have one track. In the Spanish version, we have two. We have the original track, and then we have the dubbed Spanish track. This is where any changes you want to make to the dubbed version, you'll then use settings. And you now have the ability to use any voice that you have in your voice library. For the sake of this demo, I'm not going to go through the voice library, but we have thousands of voices available to you for creative or commercial purposes. You can go through, find voices you like. We have voices in French, voices in Spanish, voices in like hundreds of languages. I guess 29 languages that we support, but we have hundreds of voices in those languages. And you can go through and actually add any of those voices instead. By default, like I said, the model clones her voice, but if we want a different voice, let's see if I have a Spanish voice. Okay, I think this is a male Spanish voice, but for the sake of this demo, we can place the voice on top of her. That's fine. You can choose that voice. And then you can also select the model. I just use what's recommended. There are some controls here, but I usually just use the defaults. So now that we've chosen Louis, you have to regenerate. I'll just regenerate a clip so it's a little bit quicker. Okay, so now instead of her voice, we're going to have him.
The NCAA announced.
Oh, whoops. Spanish. Maybe I generated the wrong one.
NCAA.
Give me 1 second. Let's try this again. Generate this one clip. We'll try Bert.
Announced a new 8-year.
I'm not sure what's happened there, if my settings were incorrect, but needless to say, let's generate all and see if this helps. All right.
Of the deal. While women's
Okay, well, I'm not sure what happened there, but you get the idea. So you can use the clip clone. The other options you have are voices within the library, and then you can apply those to the dubbing studio. The other option you have is as you make some edits. So let's see here.
So yeah,
And oh, you can adjust the volume too. So here's the volume. Where you can edit the clips, and let's see.
sports making up the bulk of the deal. While women's athletics.
For whatever reason, maybe you want to split the clip here, you can do that. If the model was missing dialogue and there was dialogue that you felt was missing from the clip, you can add a clip. So you click up here, add clip. You'll then add the clip here, and you can transcribe the audio in that sentence in case the model had missed it. And when you click transcribe, it will give you the dialogue that's missing in that video. So that's an option too. Let's go back a little bit. You can also merge. You can split clips. You can also merge. And then there's a few other things. So, right, you can adjust the volume of the clips. You can zoom as you'd like on the video editor. You can add new languages. So in the studio, I always recommend starting with one language versus selecting multiple when you begin the dub. And then from here, you can add more languages. Okay, so now let's go into sound effects. So we now have it available that you can use sound effects in the dubbing studio, which is quite fun to play with. So I'll play this again. Give me 1 second.
NCAA announced a new 8-year broadcast deal with ESPN last week for over $900 million.
Okay, so obviously this is a serious news video, but say we want to add in a sound effect here, $900 million, and we want to add coins clinking. We click sound effects at the bottom of the screen. We add the little sound effects track, which is right here. You can have multiple tracks. You can have one track. And then you'll generate the audio from that sound effects track. And this will give us some money sound, I hope. Let's see. Okay.
With women's college sports making up the bulk of the deal.
Oh, let's retranscribe. Okay, let's see.
Dollars, with women's college sports making up the
Okay, let's try another one. So let's go here.
bulk of the deal. While women's athletics have traditionally been on the sidelines of sports media.
Okay, so on the sidelines of sports media, booing crowd. Let's generate that. See if this works. Actually, let's do it in the Spanish version. Here we go.
Yeah, in recent years, they have scored some big wins with mainstream audiences.
Okay.
In recent years, they have scored some big wins.
I am not sure why it's not coming up right now. I apologize for that, but that gives you the idea, right? So you can add in sound effects, you can generate them, just generate all stale audio, and there's a lot more controls you have within the dubbing studio. So I will pause there and see what other questions. I know we have 10 minutes left, so I want to pause and answer questions. Feel free to drop some in the chat. for the dubbed version. Oh, and then one more thing. When you're done with your clip, you have the ability to export, right? So you can export the original, the Spanish, or the French, or whatever languages you're choosing from. And then here's the export options. So you have MP4 as an option. You can export the audio only. You can export the zipped file. We now have a new feature available where you can export the captions. So we don't do, to this point, we don't do we don't do like transcribing of videos or subtitling is the word I'm looking for, but you do have the ability to export the SRT file and the captions and can use those accordingly. Okay, so let's answer some questions on the Dubbing Studio. There's some in the chat. First question, are we planning on adding lip syncing anytime soon? The answer is yes, lip syncing is on our roadmap. So today we don't do any lip syncing. And by that, I mean like we don't change the actual visual effect of the lips to sync to like Spanish or French. We do plan to add that, I believe, some point later this year. One thing I will mention as well, as we're in here, that I think is new and interesting to mention, as I showed you a lot of changes that can be made in the Dubbing Studio. For enterprise partners, we now have 11 studios available. 11 studios is our fully managed service. So they give you the ability to, if you provide us like the English video file, they'll do all of this for you. So while we don't do like the actual lip syncing, the 11 Studios team will actually match up like the audio clips with like the visual effect. It's fully managed service. They do all the fine tuning. They're language experts, so they go through and make sure the translations are accurate as well. That is an option for enterprise partners. Okay, reading through some of these. Is it possible to do a simultaneous multilingual language translation? Right. So reading the rest of this, what happens if there are already sound effect sounds in the video's audio? They can interfere with the dubbing, right? That is correct. So if you have a lot of sound effects or music while you're creating a dub, it can interfere with the audio, especially if it's like loud music or background noise. It's always best practice if you have the audio separated from like the music and background noise and just the speaker's voice. It's always best practice to dub with those audio files that are separated from, or those audio stems that are separated. So what resolution is available for the export? I believe we have some documentation on this. I actually don't know the exact resolution. I do know for like the input, right now our file size is 500 megabytes. So you want to make sure your file size fits that. If you import a workaround, because that's small for audio or for video, and we are actually working on increasing that size, but a workaround is that you can import directly from like YouTube and it will bypass that file size as far as input goes. All right, let's look through some more of these. So right now, the next question is, can I add another speaker during the edit or do I have to do it before the dub? We don't have the ability to add another speaker as you're editing, so you do want to make sure that you specify that before the dub. That is a feature that will be coming soon, however. Okay. There we go. Reading some of these from before, generate, there we go. So this is for playback. The headphone is for playback. Thank you for clarifying. All right, let's see. Now our sound effects work. Okay, so I had this selected, which was the mistake I made before, which thank you for clarifying in the questions. So this is your money sound, right? So this is the money sound we added. Obviously, that's quite loud. And sorry, we'll go back to questions, but I didn't realize I had that headphone selected. Okay, and this was the booing crowd, so let's see. So they boo her quite loudly there. Let's go a little quieter.
Par les médias sportifs. Ces dernières années, ils ont obtenu.
There we go. Okay, so there we go. I make sure if you're like me, you don't have this selected for playback, because when you do, you won't hear the other audio. And thank you for clarifying there. Okay, back to questions. All right. Besides API access, do you plan to go to some cloud servers such as AWS, Azure? Currently, the answer is no. That being said, we do have like a channel partnerships team that focuses on those conversations. I think the team is open to it, but it's not on the roadmap or anything that's coming soon. Okay, I think, let me just scroll through and make sure I didn't miss any of these. Yep, so can I use the sound effects API? That's correct. The API is generally available. Audio outputs, let's see. I think this is it for questions. Oh, one more question. What training data is used for sound effects? We partnered with Shutterstock, so we have a blog on our website where we partnered with them, which helped they have a huge inventory of like sounds, music, sound effects, and this helped us fine tune our model with that partnership with them. Okay, make sure there's no new ones that came in. Will sound effects be available via API? Correct. Yep, it is now available through the API. A few questions on that. Okay, I think that's it. If there's any last, oh, here's one I might have missed. Okay, this is actually a really good question. So one of the questions asked is, do you know, and this is a common question we get, are there any tricks for dubbing Portuguese into English without a strange accent? So by default, as I mentioned, the model will automatically clone the original speaker's voice. This works better with certain accents than others. For example, if you dub like somebody with an Australian accent, it will often come out like very English or British sounding, and the same is true for Portuguese. And so the workaround for that is we always recommend creating a professional voice clone. And so what you want to do is like in the voice library, you'll create a professional voice clone, and then when you're here dubbing, you can actually select that clone like we showed. So you want to make sure you clone the voice in the accent you want. If you want a Portuguese accent speaking English, then we would recommend cloning a Portuguese speaker speaking English, and then it will preserve that accent better. So for any type of like accent control, accent preserving, you can then go ahead and clone that speaker. And it actually works well too on the original speaker. So Amna, if we wanted to clone her voice, and we can actually choose Amna from our voice library rather than the clip clone, it will work better as well. But here's this, since I didn't show earlier.
CIA a annoncé un nouvel accord de diffusion sur 8 ans avec ESPN.
So now that's how you can change the voice, and we chose a man to voice over Amna, for example, there. Some questions on like how much to spend in order to become an enterprise customer. For anyone who has questions after this, feel free to shoot us an email. The email for our sales team is sales@11labs.io. So sales@11labs.io, and the sales team can help you out there. All right. So limitations, the next question is limitations on sound effects. I don't think there's any limitations currently. I'm not sure that you can do over like maybe 30 seconds, but there's quite a variety. You can generate quite a lengthy sound effect. The longer the duration, the quality might not be as good, because I don't think you can have like 2 minutes of running water. I don't think it would work as good on the model, but that is an option. You can choose the duration and you can increase it significantly from what we showed here. And the same is true for the API. So in the API, you can specify the duration you want. Okay, any more questions? Let's see. All right, I'll give it 30 seconds for any more questions. Like I said, feel free to reach out to the team if you have any questions. My email is also Emilie, Emilie, @11labs.io. Happy to help anyone with any questions they might have on the dubbing studio or the sound effects feature. And then feel free, to reach out to us. There will be a recording of this as well. So if you'd like the recording, let me know. We can pass to your team. And Stay tuned. We will be hosting more webinars throughout the summer, so stay tuned, and you should get more outreach for that. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you're in the same time zone as me, hope you have a good lunch and hope you guys have a good rest of your week. We're almost to the weekend. Thanks again.